One Catan escaped the war in heaven and the clutches of the Necrons and the Eldari, and I'm going to tell you where they hide in the current 40k verse. We will cover how this Catan fights one of the Eldar gods, and the layers of hints we received over time about where they are located in M40, and who is watching them. There are legends of the Eldari who speak of Tsara'Noga, the Outsider. When you fell under his gaze, it caused madness. It drives those around him to extinguish their own lives instead of being around him. And during the war in heaven, he engaged the Eldar trickster god, Kegarak, in a duel. The Outsider, ever fair, came to the fight with 4 lesser Catan allied to him, perhaps younger ones or those holding less power. Kegarak deceived this Catan by casting an illusion of himself on the Catan accompanying the Outsider, and thus the Mad Catan, like Pac-Man, gobbled up his own space vampire bros. This caused pain to the Outsider, who screamed with rage and began to grow dim. But there are other takes on this tale. One, the laughing god of the Eldar, fools the Outsider again, and the Outsider thirsts for ascendancy, but the devoured fragments drive the Outsider insane. This makes him hate Kegarak, and it is said he'll one day return to get his revenge. An ancient prophecy from the Eldar says, when the living dead rise and the galaxy runs with the blood of the Eldar, then 4 Catan shall return, the Outsider being one of them, and he is still around and free, and bound within a shell. One text says he is ensnared by Kesnus, the Eldar god of the hunt. Perhaps that's why he's sealed away, but not under the eye of the Necrons, trapped in a shard. 2 other accounts say the Outsider has broken himself apart, but I think he is around and bound in some manner, whether it be by the Eldar god or his own choosing. Let's look at what and where, the many hints we have received. Amongst the records of the Eldari, it said the Outsider was tricked by Kegarak into eating his own brothers, as we've covered, and now dwells in exile within a hollow planet far to the galactic south. Later, a man in service to the Imperial Navy is said to have encountered strange geometries of the Outsider when his ship emerged from the warp. This was near the edge of the galaxy. Seeing this has eaten away at his courage and strained his mind. He worries for what he has recorded will be seen as the ravings of a madman, and even normal our world talk will be looked down upon in the world of the Imperium. This was near the edge of the galaxy when this happened. The next excerpt is broken up into parts, but what's seen tells us of myriad reflections twisting away. This thing looked like it was made by some great astrological engineer. This person then mentions twisted geometries and hearing a noise of bellowing. Also in the area are mentioned astropathic messages and its effects messages in the area because they come through as static. And this effect is always there, like there's something doing it. And finally, from this source is the mention of a big diversion made by Hive Fleet Leviathan around some anomaly. The tendril moved to avoid an area of space. Nothing can be detected in that area that would affect it. No star or nebula, but auguries do find a spherical object of unknown origins. It's of great size, 32 million, and that's right, I said million, times the size of Terra. This site also corresponds with a site monitored by the Eldar called Lariax, which would make sense if a fully powered Catan was sleeping or resting there. And in a vision, Farseer Mechu of the Eldari and of the Craftworld Ulfway has a vision, and he says in it that I have seen the doom of the universe, and amongst the fall of the Eldari and the Monkey, he also sees the writhing inverted geometries of the Outsider curl and tighten around his harvest, and they clamber and crawl like vermin around his illogical labyrinth. Barely a shred of sanity exists in the broken minds of his prey, enough to comprehend the fact that they cannot escape this hideous paradigm, but enough to quell the traitor's seed of hope that slithers unfulfilled within the beast. Perhaps those trying to escape are the other Catan. Then the Farseer notes the future is something that can be changed, and that the Catan can be stopped, and ends with, I have seen the doom of the universe, and yet I have seen some hope. And finally, and most interestingly, we have the account of an adept heretic called Cortuswain. Tech adept Phineas Roach wants to speak with him. He had not known what to expect when Archmagos Holatas had dispatched him on this errand, but he knew that it was important that he learn as much as he could from this man. Nevertheless, Phineas was shocked by his shambolic appearance. The cell was shrouded in darkness and bare of clutter, yet Phineas could see the walls were scrawled with lines and circles, overlapping and entwining in nonsensical patterns. He could not see the man clearly, hunched as he was in the darkest pool of shadow at the rear of the cell. The little light in the passageway illuminated patches of raw flesh, encrusted with a mass of wheals and puckered skin. His hair was wild and unkempt, his manner that of a feral savage. "You've seen it, haven't you?" he screeched, never once turning his facts towards Phineas. "Seen it," repeated Phineas. "Seen what?" "The one who lives beyond, the Lord of Insanity, he who dwells on the world within the world. It craves, it feeds." "I do not understand. What are you talking about?" asked Phineas, trying to regain control of the conversation. "You do not know?" "No, but perhaps you could tell me of it." Courtswain laughed, a high-pitched braying noise. "Be careful, you adept. I may just do that, but you may not thank me for enlightening you. Would you be willing to cast off the shackles of your false god, to tear out those abominations against nature you so hanker for? The machine god exists, but it is a false god, come to enslave us all." "Adept Courtswain, I have been instructed to question you on certain unusual occurrences." "Occurrences? What sort of occurrences? Where?" "In the northeastern reaches of the Segmentum Solar, some 900 light years below the galactic plane. Several of our research outposts have been attacked, the priceless technology stolen, the few survivors raving and insane. The Skitarii assigned to protect the bases apparently turned their weapons on one another in bizarre fits of madness. It's all very confusing, really. Well, to be honest, we're not sure at all what happened." "Did you recover any bodies? Dead ones, I mean?" Courtswain's maniacal voice was calming now, the quest for knowledge focusing his scattered mind. "Yes, several. Our janitors cannot explain the premature aging and wasting of their flesh. It is as though they were, for want of a better expression, drained of their life." "Ah, yes, I see now. It has begun then. It took me to its world of madness, then tossed me back. I was unfit, you see. I was tainted with our crude imitations of the machine god's image." "I don't understand," responded Phineas. "No, well, let me explain. My innocent young adept. I was part of Adeptus Mechanicus team, exploring a dead world out towards the eastern fringe called Thelmax. We explored the depths of this world and found many wondrous things, but we were not alone. Emissaries of the one who dwells beyond awaited and attacked us. I alone survived, but when I awoke it was to find I had been transported beyond the Emperor's light. I beheld a scene of bedlam, living ancient obelisks of metal, belching lightning in whipcord arcs, a horizon that stretched up and round to enclose a bloated red sun that seemed so close I could reach out and touch it. Like a malevolent crimson eye, the sun roared and seethed in its death throes, the machines feeding on its energies like obscene mechanical parasites. So something feeding on the Catan within this area, perhaps? And people are going out and capturing people and bringing them back to him, perhaps to feed him. That would make sense with the Catan. To carry on, Courtswain shuddered at the memory before continuing. Then I beheld the master of this domain, and I knew in that moment that I was doomed. Not to die, you understand, but to truly appreciate the insignificance of my being. The machine god, you see, it's everywhere, it feeds on us. I saw my companions from Thelmax fed to the machines, their bodies and souls reduced to their component atomics to feed the insatiable hunger of the machine god. Why was I cast back into this place? I do not know, only that I was. I knew then that everything we think we know is wrong. The machine god does not love us, nor does it want our worship. We are naught but playthings to it, and I could not be tainted by such evil. I think here Courtswain is mistaking what he saw for the machine god when it is in fact the Catan. Whether that sun is machines feeding on the insane one or one of the ones that it ingested, I'm not sure. I would say the ones are one of the ones it ingested, perhaps to power what it's trying to accomplish there, whatever that may be. Courtswain turned, shuffling awkwardly along the floor to the cell front and into the light. Phineas gasped in horror as the ruins of Courtswain's frame was exposed. His body was hideously deformed, where he had torn the blessings of the machine god from his flesh, and Phineas knew that the heretic's fingernails and teeth had been removed to prevent him from opening his veins. Codswain's legs ended in blackened stumps in mid-thigh, his chest a mass of poorly healed scar tissue where he had burned away yet more implants. As Codswain raised his face, Phineas recalled from his horrific countenance. His eyes had been torn from their sockets, scarred gouges in his cheeks. Telling Phineas that these wounds had been self-inflicted, had what Codswain had seen so terrified him that he had been willing to endure the agony of such mutilation? Horrified, Adept Phineas fled the chamber, the shrieking voice of Codswain following him down the passageway. "It feeds, young Adept, it feeds," screaming the heretic. "If it has turned its attention our way once more, we are naught but food for the gods." Food for the gods. So I think all that evidence stacks up pretty well for this, for the outsider, the Katana Vadas, still being a dangerous being that could be unleashed in 40k, and it is feeding, and it is nearly time for it to return, and there are no old ones to oppose at this time. The geometrics stuff reminds me of old school horror vibes, the books of H.P. Lovecraft, and it reminds me of a particular one of his short stories, but I can't quite recall the name. So before you go, please give the video a like and learn some new things about the Necrons by clicking here.